huge personal development junkie. Anything in the written form or possibly available on Audible, I'm listening to it. And I know we're all busy, we're all running at 100 miles a minute. And so the purpose of these videos is to provide you with that same personal development content in short little bits and clips that will help you get that personal development when you don't have time to actually read the book yourself or listen. So again, today we're covering chapter 1 of Blink, which is talking about the concept of thin slicing, how just a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. This chapter was amazing because it really explains that gut feel that sometimes we have when we know something is just right or something is just wrong. And there's a couple different sections, but the first section was talking about this love lab. And so there's a scientist and researcher that has this love lab and for over 20 years has been able to predict the sustainability of a couple's marriage by 15 minutes of videotape. Now, over the years, started with an hour, was like 95% accurate, got it down to an hour, was closer to 90%. 3 minutes was able to have the same predictability about the outcome of the marriage. And so the chapter talks about how is that so? How can he predict with such accuracy the sustainability of someone's marriage? So bear with me here. So it goes back to Morse code. So think about Morse code, right? It's dots and dashes, and I don't know how to do Morse code, but that's about all I know. But back during the World Wars and Morse code was being used from the different countries, those that were listening into the Morse code for the opposing forces were able to figure out what are called gist, G-I-S-T, the gists. So it's a series of lines and dots, right? But then there's pauses, and every pause is different, and every pause was unique to each person who was the operator. And so those that were listening in and trying to get intel could figure out these gists so they know who was tapping the Morse code, who was sending the message, and could figure out where the opposing forces were. Marriages are just like that. There's gists, there's pause, there's ebbs and flows. Okay, so how does that relate to today? How does that relate to messages that we're sending today? Well, think about email. Think about a text. Everyone sends text messages differently. Everyone sends emails differently. Think about the pattern of the words or the pattern of the flow of the conversation. I guarantee, think about it. If you were to cut off, so you have an email, right? Whether it's personal or work, doesn't matter. You've got an email and you took off the name of the sender and you took off the signature line and all you had was the body. I'm guessing you could probably guess who that's from, especially if it's someone that you've communicated with, right? But what happens when you don't know them? What happens when you don't have what's referred to as a thick slice of information? You don't have years and years and time over again of experiences with this person, and you're just presented with content, a thin slice of information. You can probably get some keys from who they are and what type of person that they are, just based off that thin slice of information and that thin slice of content. So what was this researcher looking for when he was going through these videotapes of married couples? You know, there were 20 different things that they were identifying, different emotions and different things that were happening, but it was contempt and the importance of contempt when they were watching the videos, because that surpasses all. And if there was contempt seen in any of those 3 minutes, then he could predict that the relationship was going to have a negative outcome. So let's take out verbal communication, written communication. There's another section in this chapter talking about the secret of the bedroom. It's not what you think it is. So there was a study done in a university where 80 college students were selected at random, and their closest friends and family were given a series of questions that covered five different buckets. Extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, emotional stability, and openness to new experiences. So on a scale of 1 to 5, their closest friends and family had to rate them. Well, of course, they guessed pretty close because they had a very thick slice of information on these folks, right? They know them, they've known them their whole lives, or pretty most all of their lives. But this is where it gets interesting. Then they bring in strangers who have never met these 80 college students and give them the same questionnaire on the same 5 things. But they don't meet them. They don't talk to these 80 college students. They get to spend 15 minutes in their dorm room alone. So the student's not there, there's no one there to interact with, but they have 15 minutes to judge them on those 5 things. Now, when it came to extroversion, agreeableness, they were kind of off the charts. But when it came to conscientiousness, emotional stability, and openness to new experiences, they were spot on. Spot on, just like the people who knew them. Thick slice of information versus thin slice. So think about if someone were to come in your home today, maybe your bedroom, maybe your family room, what would that say about you? Have you ever gone into someone's home or someone's kitchen or office? Office, that's a good one. Have you ever gone in there? What do you immediately take away from that person when you see neat stacks of paperwork, nothing on the walls, no dust, no food, no nothing, versus piles of work? Maybe it's children's artwork on the walls. There's different things that you take away when you see those. And so I thought that was super interesting. And the other part that falls into this bucket with thin slicing, which I agree with 150%, doctors. So there was a case study done with doctors and those that had high instances of malpractice. It had nothing to do with the fact that they may or may not had been guilty of malpractice, but it had to do with how the patients were treated. Hi, Allison. It had to do with how the patients were treated. How many times have you gone into a doctor's office and you're like, oh no, I don't like this guy, girl, whoever, right? Or maybe you interact with that physician or that specialist and you know just right away that this is the person who's going to treat your needs. A lot of times too, if you take that back a little bit, I will focus on how the receptionist or maybe the nurse up front greets and interacts with the patients. Same thing. If they're friendly and they're outgoing and they seem genuinely caring about me being there, then I know that doctor is going to be good. Same thing. Last but not least, power of a glance. So in this book, it was interesting, and this was just an interesting fact I never knew about Tom Hanks, right? So if you go way back in his career, he was on Bosom Buddies. I do remember watching that though. And when he read for Splash, the producers quoted in the book to say, I just knew he was right. And no one wanted him for that role. He's like, I just knew he was right. And he had no basis to go off of. And think about the career and the different roles that he has played because this one person took a chance on him. You know, I think about, it's so funny. Just the other day, Brittany, my 7-year-old, was saying, Mom, I just knew when we moved here and I saw my friend, I just knew we were going to be friends forever. And I said to her, I said, how did you know? She's like, I just knew. And so even at 7 years old, we're already collecting certain pieces of information from people that isn't intentional and it's just out there and it's just innate. And they're being able to make these decisions quickly, like that person's going to be my friend. That person's going to be my friend, and can't put their finger on it. So super unique, super cool. I hope that you've continued to enjoy these summaries. So that's chapter 1. It was quick chapter. So we're going to do chapter 2. Again, Blink is the book. I can't wait to read chapter 2. I'm going to pick it up tomorrow. If you want my typed notes, just comment me below and I'll get with you. I'll get my typed notes over to you. If you thought this was beneficial and you enjoy this content, I'd love to hear from you. But Friday, you can expect chapter 2. And of course, if you have any takeaways or any feedback, I'd love to hear it. So have a great night. Happy Tuesday and have a good evening. Bye.